My name is Mundo Marquez. This is Subsess.com, a website that I am using to host free trainings and free courses to help any subcontractor that's either looking to grow or a new subcontractor that's looking to get into their industry be able to have success or similar success to what we've had here at Don Hughes Construction. This is how my family and I have grown our stucco and siding subcontracting from $0 in 2021 to over 1.5 million by simply focusing on two things: our specific knowledge and how to market without spending a single dollar. This is going to be an intro to a series of free courses that I'm going to have online to help any subcontractor that isn't currently at $1 million a year get there. One of the things that I want to be very clear about is that these are processes and systems that we are still using today to help us grow. These are all things that I refer to as leverages. The systems, the processes, the way we do things are leverages that are able to let us compete within our organization. Using these leverages, we are able to repeat our client acquisition process. The client acquisition process is, in my opinion, the biggest hurdle to get things rolling. Okay, this is how to get the clients, okay, how to nurture the clients, and then how to convert those clients so that you can begin to get consistent work. With the ones that we've done and the process that we're using, we were able to do that and repeat that process month after month to go from not having a single client to over 15 clients that consistently award us projects without beating down our prices. Like I said, these are practices that we are currently using and we're doing ourselves to get to where we are today. Today, we now have clients who are giving us master agreements. And what a master agreement is are agreements that they're telling you, we want you to fulfill for us for the next 2 years and not just the next 2 projects. Now, this gives you so much more peace, so much more clarity in knowing that you're going to have longevity, but you got to have the long-term vision. And the long-term vision starts up here. It starts in the mentality. It starts by understanding that you have to give yourself the biggest advantage in being able to compete with these companies who have years and years of relationships with the current builders. So leverages, like I said, okay, what are leverages? To me, leverage is anything that's given me or can give me an advantage or a competitive edge over the competitors in our industry, okay? Things such as using a CRM properly, right? A follow-up process that others aren't doing, communication processes that these guys may have started off doing but then forgotten. To me, these are all leverages. But before I realized that those were leverages, I had to find the leverages in my own life. These leverages all give you peace. Okay, that is the biggest takeaway that I can have from understanding and seeing things in this manner. Each leverage, whether that is a system, whether that is a belief, whether that is the individuals around me that help us build this so quickly, each one of those leverage gives us peace. And that allows you to compete, because when you have peace, you're not full of stress. You're not full of anxiety, right? You're simply understanding that I have to do these 3 things today in order to be here for the next 3 years with the maximum amount of profits per job. Okay, that's as simple as I can break it down to you the way that I view business. Okay, what are the 3 things I need to do today that are going to allow me to have the most profit? And that's going to allow me to repeat each one of these clients that have the experience with us. But to get to that, you got to understand the fundamentals. You got to understand where and what things are going to be able to be these leverages for you that are going to be able to give you that peace, that gives you that discipline. Okay, so one of the questions that I was asked at a contracting event that I went to last year was, what is business development? Okay, and I thought this was a great question. I frequently come back to it because to me, business development is understanding where you are today, right? And then where you're headed. So having a clear vision, knowing where you're going. This weekend mentor, I call him, was a very high-end commercial builder. Okay, and he pulled me aside after his talk and he told me, your answer, was great, but if you don't mind, I want to add to that. And I told him, sure, I love that. And so I'm going to share his response with you guys, because to me, it's been really impactful. And the way he redefined what business development was to me is not just knowing where you are and where you want to go, but understanding that those 2 things are made possible by creating long-term value and building relationships. Because when you fully digest this and when you fully, embody this, long-term value in building relationships, you're not doing things for today or for tomorrow or for this Friday to be a great paycheck, right? You're not doing this because you understand that the next 5 years, the next 10 years, your GCs, your clients are going where you want them to be and where you want to be their trade partner, their vendor, and really capture all of that growth that they're going to have by creating long-term value. Now, before we get there, right? Before you identify these clients, you're probably asking yourself, okay, well, how am I gonna find a $10 million client? Well, we have to take it one step back, and I want you to understand what your specific knowledge is and how this is gonna start piecing together with leverages and understanding these things for you to be able to compete. All right, so specific knowledge. We're all experts in something, okay? Most of us choose to ignore them. And what I mean by that is, at least in my situation, I chose to ignore the specific knowledge that I had in construction because construction to me wasn't sexy, right? Construction to me wasn't a business that I could say, I'm going to be proud of that. Because I was looking at it from a perspective of a 28-year-old man that has seen construction all of his life, from a town where everybody who is not successful, quote unquote, ends up in construction, okay? But it wasn't until I could detach my ego, until I could see construction as just a simple industry that I understood, right? An industry where I could have a conversation with somebody and not even realize that I'm talking nuances, that I'm talking intricate details that the average doesn't understand. At that point, I realized I can really be of value to somebody who's looking for this service. So with that came the word decadere. Decadere is Latin for decide. One thing all in, man. You can't come into an industry thinking, hey, I'm a good painter, but I also want to be the best framer because I want to amass more, because I want to get to $1 million a lot quicker. That is the first and sure way for you not to get to $1 million. The only thing that we need is focus. This is the golden resource. This is the thing that everybody needs just to have success. And it is the hardest thing to obtain because we're so distracted. And one of the biggest distractors is thinking that if you do 2, 3, 4 different things, you're gonna get to that $1 million quicker. And I'm telling you, it's gonna take you a lot longer to get there. And most of the time, not even get there because you're gonna be so stressed out of your mind trying to figure something out that you're not able to compete against because you have people who have been doing, framing for 10 years that you can't compete with. But if you stick to the painting, the one thing that you know for sure, without a doubt, how to communicate your value in, that's where you're going to win. That's where you begin to see painting as a leverage because your specific knowledge gives you that confidence. There's a book that I love to read, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. And in there, he talks about the 3 most important pillars in our life, which is health, wealth, and relationships. So I realized those really are the 3 most important buckets, if you will, in our life. I also understood that they all begin with the same thing, a decision, right? Think about it. Health, you're not happy with yourself. You feel fat. You feel uncomfortable. Maybe you used to be a top performing athlete and now you can't keep up with, your 10-year-old niece. At that point, you make a decision where you don't want to feel that again, right? You make a decision to prioritize your health. And so you don't care if you're going at 9 in the morning or if you're going at 4 in the morning, you're making the decision to better that area in your life. Same thing with wealth. Me personally, I got to a point where I was having a great time. I was living in Colombia. I was having a great time. Guess what? My wealth declined, right? I struck a little bit of gold in crypto. I struck a little bit of gold in real estate wholesaling, but I didn't manage it. Okay, so I had to come back down to having negative $750 in my bank account, coming back to sleeping in my parents' spare bedroom floor. Okay, but I made a decision, and I made a decision that I wasn't gonna build something that gave me wealth for 2 months so that I can go live a year and a half without a single war in the world in Colombia in paradise, right? No, I made a decision that I was gonna build something that wasn't gonna give me my first $1 million, but give my family their first $1 million and set us up in wealth. But again, I understood everything that came with that. I understood the level of sacrifices that were going to come with that, but I made a decision around wealth. And in relationships, what I've personally been finding, what I've personally been living is that in relationships, as a man, you got to make a decision. To love somebody is to decide to love them. You're deciding that you're going to take this person with their imperfections, that you're deciding that you're going to open yourself up and be vulnerable to that person with your imperfections, so that you guys can build something and have that clear vision of where you guys want to go, right? But that's a decision that's being made. Now, I know you guys are probably thinking, hey, he's not talking about anything that has to do with marketing. He's not talking about anything that has to do with construction. Knowing how to make decisions is the biggest differentiator that I've experienced, because knowing how to make a decision in these three areas of your life is going to give you the ability to say no to work that you already know is probably going to leave you a couple of bucks here, but in the long term be a headache. And then being able to decide on things that are worth pursuing, on things that are worth giving up your full weekend to develop. Knowing how to make a decision is imperative for you to go ahead and understand now, along with the leverages, along with the specific knowledge. All of these things have to be embodied for you to be able to have and be able to grow, right? If you're looking at this video, if you're taking this video serious, it's because in one way or another, you are the visionary. You are the person that's going to have to make these decisions, that's going to have to, like my dad said, grab the bull by the horns and go at it, right? And understand that you're welcoming in hardship, that you're welcoming in different levels of fatigue, mentally, physically, but that you also see where you're going to go when you do this and when these sacrifices are accounted for head on. All right. Now, based around decision and talking about specific knowledge and talking about leverages, my first biggest decision that I had to make was, where exactly did I want to focus on? What did I want to focus on? Now, I had two areas where I had the most leverage because these two areas are what I knew more than the average, right? And that's soccer and construction. In soccer, I've spent a lot of years playing at a very high level. It was something that, it was my childhood dream to play professionally, to play in a stadium. And thankfully, I got to experience that to a certain level and a certain degree. At the same time, as I was growing up, all I ever heard was construction, specifically stucco. And for the last 15 years, siding. Okay, and so I had to sit down and say, which one of these do I feel best taking the next step? Which one of these do I feel the best deciding and going all in on? Eventually, I was able to decide on saying, hey, you know what? Construction is just what I know. Construction is the one thing that I'm willing to start all over with, that I'm willing to just figure out until I can grow something out of this, because I understood that my dad had all the experience and that my sister knew all the admin work. And so all I needed to do was embody my last 8 to 9 years of sales and acquisitions into this one industry, construction, to be able to generate us opportunities for my dad to perform on the field and for my sister to correctly organize in our office, and have that all three combined be a great experience for each of the GCs. Now, talking about acquisitions, right? If we go back a few minutes, I was talking about how probably the biggest 8 months that I've experienced so far were figuring out the acquisitions, okay? How am I going to get a client, right? How am I going to stay in touch with that client until he gives me an opportunity? And then how am I going to convert that opportunity, okay? You have to understand that you need to sell with confidence. So confidence, to me, it comes from knowledge, right? Confidence comes from talking about something that you know. Again, construction is just something that I know. I can have a conversation with any GC, with anybody that knows stucco and that knows sidings, because the confidence that I have in the details around these niches. Wisdom is understanding where your advantages are and using them to grow. So if you say that you're smart, if you say that you're somebody who is wise, then that's because you understand where your knowledge is, and you understand that your confidence comes from that knowledge. You rely to selling with your expertise, with the knowledge that you have. And I understood this because I came across a podcast where they talked about selling with a script versus selling with confidence. And at this point, I've done both. When I first started and when I first got into entrepreneurship, all I did was sell with the script. I was doing real estate wholesaling, and it was literally a script that told me exactly how I needed to start the conversation, the next question to ask, all the way to getting them down to a point where they were signing an agreement for us to buy their house. Okay, so selling with a script to me is very effective. I'm not saying that it isn't. However, it's night and day when selling with confidence, Because ultimately, when I got to the point of 3, 4 years inside of wholesaling, I started unconsciously realizing that there were a lot of people that, yes, needed the money quickly, but it didn't set well with me. It didn't set well with because I feel like I knew that I was purposely beating them down on the price, knowing that they could still get a little more from a traditional buyer because of our business model, because we needed to get it, that $10,000, $20,000 less so that we could get paid on it. Now, I'm not saying that it's not justified. All I'm saying is that me personally, that began to separate me from being able to sell. And so what happens is that once that separation begins to happen, you no longer feel like you're helping the client versus when you're selling with confidence versus when somebody comes and tells me, hey man, I have a $6,000 budget, I'd love to get siding, and I'm telling them, I know you want to get siding and it is the bigger and better product, but if you're not able to afford it, you can get stucco, and this is how it's going to be 100% waterproof. This is how our stucco is not going to crack. These are the ASTM standards that we're following so that this stucco does not crack, that we're willing to do for you so that you can know that you're buying something. If their main issue is water intrusion or maybe a certain look that they want to achieve, a modern feel versus a farm-like feel, you can achieve these with both stucco and siding depending on their budget. But I'm not able to give them those options if I don't fully understand what goes into this. But at the same time, understand what kind of overhead that's going to expect from us to fulfill and provide that service. But you got to also be willing to tell them no. As much as I want to help somebody, as much as I may like this person, as much as they're saying, hey, we want to work with you, if their budget isn't there and if their numbers aren't going to work with my numbers, as much as I want to tweak it, you have to have the confidence to say, no, I can't perform this, but guess what? I know a subcontractor that's starting off, that's a lot smaller, that's going to be able to, fulfill this for you with similar standards, that's going to fit them and be a win-win solution for both them and us. So having understood that you need to start mentally absorbing the leverages, mentally realizing where your specific knowledges are, and then picking the area you want to focus in on. You want to niche down, right? Riches are in the niches. This isn't something new. This is something that a lot of people in the entrepreneur space in every industry repeat, because you got to know who you are and what you're able to offer. Okay, because if you don't know who you are and what you're able to offer, it's going to be very hard to be able to translate and communicate that confidence that you have in your product, in your service, for clients to want to go with you and not having any second doubt, right? Not having that buyer's remorse. In this industry, I see a lot of people, that are in the roofing space, that are in these spaces where they're more, they traditionally go more to the homeowners versus the GCs, right? My ideal client is a GC. But there's a big difference in that, because I feel like when you go to a homeowner, you have to deal more with the buyer's remorse. A GC, not so much, right? Because they're working directly to the client. But if I was to deal with a residential homeowner, I would know that my confidence in knowing my processes and knowing my products and knowing my service would be able to translate and cancel out that buyer's remorse that most of the people have when they're spending, $10, $15, $20,000 on an upgrade for their home. And to be able to do this, you have to know, right? You have to know your niche. They also give you the ability to compete against seasoned companies. When I started this off 2 years ago, it took us about 6 months to get our first opportunity. So those were 6 months that I was studying the market, 6 months where I was being told no, and I was asking, well, why? Right? And the biggest thing that I always got from that was, you're just young, you're new, right? I've been working with this guy for the last 15 years. I have no problems with him. I realized there was something that I wasn't communicating, okay? And to me, it was just that I wasn't communicating the actual experience that I have. But when you're competing against companies who have been performing the same thing for 20 years, guess what? You do have an advantage in that, because these are the same companies who maybe 10, 15 years ago when they started were prioritizing communication. They were prioritizing, weekly updates on their projects, and now they may have forgotten it. So your specific knowledge, understanding that you're here for the long term, providing value every time you interact with your clients, building relationships. All of these are your leverages and your advantages because most of these clients aren't doing it anymore. Okay, and if you find a way to consistently do that and then kind of translate that into your message when you do outbound, a lot of these clients aren't going to ask you for references because you're answering their questions up front. And so instead of saying, okay, well, who do you work for, what do you do, what kind of experience do you have, you put that up front. It only gives them the option that if they are going to reply, they're going to reply with an opportunity. Okay, that's kind of the way that I vision and focus on and have formulated my outbound marketing with. Okay, so always looking to create win-win solutions. In summary, for this video, is that your growth begins the moment you leave your ego at the door. Again, I know that this video is not something that a lot of people like. This is not technical just yet. This is just understanding that you really have to have your mentality right before you decide to grow. And I'm not saying that you can't grow, right? But if you have an ego that's not letting you see that you don't know stuff, that there are things that others have an advantage on because of the years that they have in there, but at the same time realizing that if you can just follow the track, a proven record that has been working for us, and simply follow those steps, understanding that you're going to be doing that, it's going to suck and it's going to be hard, that is you leaving your ego at the door, and that is you giving your family, your business, yourself the best opportunity into seeing it evolve into the business that you and I both know we can get it to. So here are the steps that we have gone over. I'm not saying that you have to follow these in any order, but definitely prioritize and understanding each one of these in your own life so that once you start doing your outbound marketing, once you start doing your client acquisitions, everything seems to just naturally flow and piece itself together. Step one is you got to understand your leverages, right? Understand what you know, right? Because then you're allowed to focus on that specific knowledge. You're allowed to be able to say, okay, I understand construction, right? I understand the hours that you have to work. I understand that afterwards you may have to run materials. Like I get all that. And then within that construction industry, I have a lot of knowledge around painting, around drywall, around framing, around concrete, whatever that may be. Step three, decadere. One thing only, go all in, decide on that one person in your life that you want to invest in because they're going to help you for your long-term growth. Decide on going to the gym and prioritizing your health because it's going to just give you more endurance. You're going to have a lot clearer of a mentality for your business, for the problems that are going to come, and decide what service you're going to provide. The one thing that you can do better than anybody within a 50-mile radius from you. Then you go to step 4, sell with confidence. Now, step 4 comes from the first 3 steps, right? From understanding your leverage, from then identifying your specific knowledge, and then deciding that that's the only thing you're going to do for the next 10 years. Now you have confidence. Now you have peace. Now you have time on your side because you know that you simply just have to do it day in, day out, not caring what's happening today, not wanting to see $100 in your account today, not wanting to see $1,000 into your account today, but understanding that in 5 years, you and your business partners, if you have them, will see $1 million, $2 million. And then number 5, the riches are in the niches. Okay, there is nothing that you're going to be able to achieve without having a specific niche that you can always provide a win-win solution, even when it is you that isn't winning in that solution. So that summarizes this first video that I wanted to include for you guys. If you've watched this 100% through, congratulations. I know that this is a very kind of boring thing that you want to talk to. I know that a lot of us have a lot of ego that spikes up right away and says, I'm too good to hear all that. I know, I just need the specifics. I understand that. If you watch this seriously from the bottom of my heart, congrats, and really embody that. Really reflect on that. The next videos going forward are going to be a lot more tactical. The next video going forwards are going to be exactly on how I started getting clients, how I started converting them, the step-by-step follow-up process that I use, how I outbound email now that has helped us convert a lot of opportunities. So I look forward to seeing you on the next videos, and I hope you enjoy and find some value.